Hello, Arizona. Will Leroy here for the inaugural Will Leroy Comedy Hour. Before I begin, though, I wanted to wish all my brothers and sisters, veterans, those out and in and downrange, may God bless and keep you today and keep you safe and keep your family safe. And may God bless and keep America. Amen. Try not to chew any ice. So what I thought I'd do is, we had some Antifa folks take over basically about a 6-block radius of parts of the city of Seattle, Washington the other day. And, bless their hearts, they have gotten themselves together and created kind of a manifesto, list of demands. And, anytime anybody prints something or sends it to the media, I have always found that if you read it out loud, it tends to give it the impact that probably it needs to have. And so what I thought I would do for the first William Leroy Comedy Inaugural Hour, or minute, or whatever the hell it's going to be, I thought I'd read it. And add a few comments here and there for crystallized thought. So what I'm going to read here are the demands of the collective black voices at Free Capitol Hill to the government of Seattle, Washington. In credit to the people who freed Capitol Hill, this list of demands is neither brief nor simplistic. God forbid we might make fun of something they had to say, so they want to make sure that all of us readers and those who might hear this message understand that this damn thing ain't going to be brief, and it sure as hell ain't going to be simplistic, by God. They go on to say, this is no simple request to end police brutality. Well, thank God for that, because that would be just too simple. We demand that the city council and the mayor, whoever that may be, I guess media being what it is in Seattle, and the attention span of many of these Antifa teenagers and millennials being what it is, I imagine understanding who the present mayor is probably a difficult proposition for these folks, struggling with reading and whatnot, and comprehension especially. So whoever the hell the mayor is, we want you to understand this is directed to you as well. Got that? We demand that they implement these policy changes for the cultural and historic advancement of the city of Seattle. Historic advancement. My Lord, we're witnessing something historic here, friends. And to ease the struggles of its people, all of the people of Seattle. We're with you. This document is to represent the black voices who spoke in victory at the top of 12th and Pine after 9 days of peaceful protest. We're just going to ignore all the burned cars and broken storefronts and the looting and whatnot. That was, hell, I don't know where the hell that came from, but that sure as shit wasn't us. While under constant nightly attack from the Seattle Police Department, these words from that night, June 8th, 2020. Pardon me, I gotta turn the page. Sorry, I wasn't prepared. For ease of consideration, we've broken these demands into 4 categories: the justice system, health and human services, economics, and education. Given this historical moment, we'll begin with our demands pertaining to the justice system. Now that part is in bold. The Seattle Police Department and attached court system are beyond reform. We do not request reform. We demand abolition. We demand that the Seattle Council and the mayor defund and abolish the Seattle Police Department and the attached criminal justice apparatus. This means 100% of funding, including existing pensions for Seattle Police. At an equal level of priority, we also demand that the city disallow the operations of ICE in the city of Seattle. In the transitory period between now and the dismantlement of the Seattle Police Department, we demand that the use of armed force be banned entirely. No guns, no batons, no riot shields, no chemical weapons, especially against those exercising their First Amendment right as Americans to protest. I don't know, folks. Did I miss something? Did we unleash chemical weapons against the black-clad millennials with their hoodies in Seattle over the weekend? God, is that on HBO or something? I'd pay per view for that one, I'll tell you what. But anyway, we demand an end to the school-to-prison pipeline and the abolition of youth jails. Get kids out of prison, get cops out of schools. We also demand that the new youth prison being built in Seattle currently be repurposed. You know, I think that might be a good idea, because as these folks are probably be considered young adults, let's use it for them. Put them all together in one place and then use chemical weapons on them. We demand that not the city government nor the state government, now, you know, hate to send these poor little SOBs to grammar school, but I have to read this one again because I believe this is a double negative, not nor. We demand that not the city government nor the state government. Okay. But that the federal government launch a full-scale investigation into past and current cases of police brutality in Seattle and Washington. Well, I thought the two were connected, but I guess we're going to go statewide now. As well as the reopening of all closed cases reported to the Office of Police Accountability. In particular, we demand that cases particular, they love that word particular, I guess. It's just particular about these particular folks that they love the word particular, by God. And ain't that particular, or is that peculiar? I guess it's, you say tomato, I say tomato, but I digress. In particular, where no justice has been served, namely the cases, they're going to name some of these folks. Iosa Faltogo, that's a handle. Demarius Butts. Okay, I'd buy that video. Isaiah Obit. Tommy Lee, only one E. Sean Fuhr, F-U-H-R, mein Führer. And Charlena Lyles. Something tells me these are Antifa leaders. I don't know, call me crazy. They sure as hell ain't ladies from the old folks home. Interesting names, though, got to give them that. Actually, kind of, let's give credit to their parents. They tried hard. Even though their kids failed, the parents did try to make them notable. We demand reparations for victims of police brutality in a forum to be determined. Well, open-ended. We demand that the city of Seattle make the names of the officers involved in police brutality a matter of public record. Now, that ain't such a bad idea. Anonymity, and I actually spelled it right, should not be even a privilege in public service. Should not even be a privilege in public service. Grammar. We demand a retrial. Oh, this is a good one. I think this is probably my all-time favorite. We demand a retrial of all people in color. People in color. People in color. So people live in color? I guess we do, unless you live in black and white. People in color currently serving a prison sentence for violent crime by a jury of their peers in their community. Yes, you're right. So the murderers and rapists that have destroyed pedophile, let's not forget the kidnappers and murderers and rapists who have destroyed families, who happen to be in color, should all be retried. And those families and all that pain and all that trauma, and this seems to say everybody that was ever arrested in color serving a prison sentence. I don't know, where does that go back to? 50 years? By a jury of their peers in their community. Wow. We demand decriminalization of the acts of protest, and amnesty for protesters generally, but specifically those involved. I wonder if they name Antifa and Black Lives Matter in what has been termed the George Floyd Rebellion against the terrorist cell that previously occupied this area known as the Seattle Police Department. The Seattle Police Department is a terrorist cell. Interesting. Okay. This includes the immediate release of all protesters currently being held in prison after the arrests made at the 11th and Pine on Sunday night and early Saturday morning, June 7th and 8th, and any other, boy, that is a really long sentence, and any other protesters arrested in the past 2 weeks of the uprising. The name Evan Haria in particular comes to mind, who filmed the Seattle police macing a young girl and is now in jail. By God. We demand that the city of Seattle and the state government release any prisoner currently serving time for marijuana-related offense and expunge the related conviction. You know they had to throw that in there. If I was them, honestly, I would have included LSD, psilocybin, hash. Why not liquor? I mean, half of these folks, some of them had to be in the bag somewhere. Not everybody can afford marijuana, by God. We demand that prisoners currently serving time be given the full and unrestricted right to vote, and for Washington State to pass legislation specifically breaking from federal law that prevents felons from being able to vote. Thank God these millennials, well, that's right, they don't have civics classes anymore, do they? No comprehension of anything that happens in terms of how things actually work. But, We demand an end to prosecutorial immunity for police officers in the time between now and the dissolution of the SPD and extant justice system. They must add a thesaurus somewhere. Pretty cool. Extant judicial system. Justice system. Extant. Big word. I'm impressed. We demand the abolition of imprisonment, generally speaking, but especially the absolution of both youth prisons and privately owned for-profit prisons. Prison reform is an important thing. That's something our president's actually looking into. So, the abolition of imprisonment generally, okay. But the rest of that, I think I'd support that. We demand, in replacement of the current criminal justice system, the creation of restorative, transformative accountability programs as a replacement for imprisonment. Show me the plan. We demand autonomy be given to the people to create localized anti-crime systems. Wow. We demand that the Seattle Police Department, between now and the time of its abolition in the near future, empty its lost and found and return property owned by the denizens of the city. Return the property owned by the denizens of the city. That could be a movie. Cool. We demand justice for those who have been sexually harassed or abused by the Seattle Police Department or prison guards in the state of Washington. 100% behind you on that one. If that happened, and there are folks out there who are victims and have not had their day in court or are too afraid to speak up, and by God, I'm with you 1,000%. Bravo. We demand that between now and the abolition of the SPD, that each and every SPD officer turn on their body cameras, and that the body camera video all of Seattle police should be a matter of easily accessible public record. Do they want to turn them on all the time? What are they guys looking for them to see what they do at home? In the shower, perhaps? Not in the shower, maybe. They're not specific about how long they want them turned on and where, so kind of a fun request, actually. We demand that the funding previously used for Seattle Police be directed to A, socialized health and medicine for the city of Seattle, B, free public housing, because housing is a right, not a privilege, by God. Public education to decrease the average class size in city schools and increase teacher salary. Well, if they'd led with that, they would have had me. I'm right there with you. Teachers are underpaid, classes are too big. If anything, we need to address that nationwide. 100% behind you on that one, folks. Good job. Free public housing. Oh, bless your little commie hearts. You kick them out of mother's basement and you get them to try to figure out how to get a job. Of course, they're going to want free public housing, by God. Naturalization services for immigrants to the United States living here undocumented. Well, we already have that, you ignorants. We demand they be called undocumented because no person is illegal. General community development, parks, etc. Well, okay, I guess you're getting tired of writing. We also have economic demands that must be addressed. Pay attention. We demand the de-gentrification of Seattle, starting with rent control, whatever the hell that means. We demand the restoration of city funding for arts and culture to reestablish the once rich local cultural identity of Seattle. I didn't realize that it wasn't there to begin with, but, haven't been there in a while. We demand free college for the people of the state of Washington. Due to the overwhelming effect that education has on economic success and the correlated overwhelming impact of poverty on people of color as a form of reparations for the treatment of black people in this state and country. We demand that between now and the abolition of the SPD, the Seattle Police be prohibited from performing homeless sweeps that displace and disturb our homeless neighbors, and on equal footing, we demand an end to all evictions. So, homeless, demand to all evictions. You don't pay your rent, you can't be evicted. So I love the logic. We want to have someone who owns a home give us a place to live. We want to be able to stop paying them for our privilege to live there. And then we demand that we can't be evicted. How many spoiled little punk-ass wusses? Antifa? Black Lives Matter. You heard it first here, folks. We demand a decentralized election process to give the citizens of Seattle a greater ability to select candidates for public office, such that we are not forced to choose at the poll between, I think I know where this one's going, between equally undesirable options. They got to be talking about Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. I agree with you on that one. You kind of work that out with your idiots in the Democratic Party. Sorry, folks. There are multiple systems and policies in place which make it impractical at best for working class people to run for public office, all of which must go, starting with any fees associated with applying to run for public office. Well, you know what? I mean, that's ridiculous. Why not just say, and I agree that we should have reformed that would allow anyone that wants to run for an office to run. The price of entry is ridiculous. I mean, nobody can run for office anymore unless you're a millionaire, basically. So yeah, I agree. Let's just take the TV session, public TV stations. They should give equal time to every candidate for free. I wouldn't mind if my taxes are used for that, and eliminate all private money going to support any candidates. I'm for that 100,000%. I think probably 99 9/10% of Americans would be as well. I wish they could have articulated it a little better, but again, they're Antifa millennials and Black Lives Matter, so Okay, now another bold section here. Related to economic demands, we also have demands pertaining to what we would formally call health and human services. We demand that hospitals and care facilities of Seattle employ black doctors and nurses specifically to help care for black patients. Who are the racists? I'm just going to leave that question out there. We demand the people of Seattle seek out and proudly support black-owned businesses. Your money is our power and sustainability. They kind of already do that, but hey. We demand the city create an entirely separate system staffed by mental health experts to respond to 911 calls pertaining to mental health crises and insist that all involved in such a program be put through thorough, rigorous training in conflict de-escalation. God, you know, the naivete of these young adults, something, ain't it? Finally, let us now address demands regarding the education system in the city of Seattle and the state of Washington. Excuse me, I just have to have a sip of my cocktail because I think I have to have just a slightly bigger buzz to deal with the rest of this. Wow. Continued. We demand the history of black and Native Americans be given a significantly greater focus in the Washington state education curriculum. You know, that's probably legitimate. I agree. We demand that thorough anti-bias training become a legal requirement for all jobs in the education system, as well as in the medical profession and in mass media. Well, I think it already is in education and medical. Mass media, God help you there. Mass media kind of is for you idiots. So, I mean, probably the last thing you want to do is start attacking those idiots. But, hey, go for it. We demand the city of Seattle and the state of Washington, oh, here it comes, remove any and all monuments dedicated to historical figures of the Confederacy whose treasonous attempts to build an America with slavery as a permanent fixture were an affront to the human race. They have no idea what the Civil War was about. They probably have no idea what the Revolutionary War was about. They certainly haven't read the Bill of Rights or the Constitution. They certainly haven't read any of the papers or letters penned or founded by our founders. They have no idea about the biographies of General Robert E. Lee or anything else. But of course, you know, just ridiculous. And that's it. Well, they waited to attack the Confederacy last, which is interesting. You know, for those of you that don't know, being a son of the South, I'm going to give you a little bit of history here just for the hell of it. You know, the Confederate War, Civil War, was precipitated by Mr. Lincoln. Now, everybody thinks Mr. Lincoln was an angel, and he was an incredible man, great president. A couple of significant mistakes, one of which was raising a volunteer army to invade Virginia. If he had just not done that, if he had not gotten the military involved in trying to force states to accept the agenda that they were pushing, and it was a hell of a lot more than just slavery, we never would have had a civil war. There were already leaders in place in the majority of southern states. They knew that the days of slavery were numbered. Most of those men, like General Robert E. Lee and many others, were good Christian men who understood the evils of slavery and were going about their business to get rid of it. Unfortunately, at the time, it was tied to the economic sustainability of the South, which was mainly agriculturally based, and the North was industrial based. And the invention of the cotton gin and some other technological advances up north basically spelled the end of much of the southern states' agricultural economy and their ability to sustain themselves as a group of states. So there was a hell of a lot more going on than slavery, although slavery is the issue everybody likes to point to because it rationalizes all the military events that took place thereafter. So just all I'm going to say is just read outside of your comfort zone, read a bunch of different views on the war, look at the economics of it specifically, recognize that most of the adult men that fought in the Civil War had distant relatives, some still living, who had actually fought in the American Revolution. So they still understand. And back then, states' rights were a much bigger issue than a centralized federal government. All right, these colonies that created their states were still fiercely independent, and rightly so. And for another state to invade another state was a pretty big deal. And these guys were, the American Revolution was just a couple generations back. Robert E. Lee is in his lineage on his wife's side is related to George Washington, for crying out loud. So anyway, enough of that. So I hope you enjoyed this. That's the manifesto list of demands from the folks up there that have taken over a 6-block radius of Seattle. Something, ain't it? And having said all that, I hope you enjoyed it. Bless your hearts. Have a great day.